Welcome to Resilience Brilliance. I'm Jena Taylor, resilient strategist and founder of Resilience Brilliance podcast and programs. My show was born out of my own story of survival. After a traumatic brain injury, I couldn't walk, talk, or even remember. I had to start from scratch. Within months, I fought my way back, first to independence and eventually rebuilding a six-figure career. My mantra became reclaim my life, and it is the heartbeat of everything I do. Resilience Brilliance is for anyone struggling with adversity, burnout, or the weight of life's challenges, especially women and leaders experiencing life transitions. The show delivers inspiring stories, practical tools, and expert insights so you can overcome, rebuild, and reclaim your own life with heart, humility, and humor. Today, I welcome renowned hypnotherapist, mindset trainer, and retreat leader, Caryn Bird. Caryn transforms lives through her signature Soul Bridge process, a powerful blend of clinical hypnotherapy, spiritual activations, and somatic healing. Having turned her own profound grief from child loss and divorce into a beacon of hope, she now hosts exclusive Heal the Heartache retreats in intimate, sacred spaces, guiding just 12 bereaved parents at a time to release guilt, reconnect with their child's spirit, and reclaim vibrant joy and purpose. Caryn's work empowers parents to honor their loss by living fully, making her a sought-after voice for grief counseling, grief healing, spiritual reconnection, and personal reinvention. Caryn, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you. I know that you've gone through loss also, and I love your spirit, and I'm excited to talk about resilience.
Thank you. When you lose someone, you learn something that you didn't know you needed to learn. When I get through my days now a lot differently than I did at the beginning in the acute stage of grief, but it's still when you meet somebody and they have a loss and you have that connection of just knowing what somebody feels in their heart. I get all choked up about it. When you have that experience and you can share that understanding with someone else, it's a very powerful connector. So just everybody who's in the audience today, we are going to be talking about grief, death, loss of a child. And with that, Caryn, please tell the audience how you got to where you are today and what happened. What was the tragedy that brought you into this path?
Well, I cannot tell you how I got to where I am today, and I feel incredibly blessed that I am in the space I'm in. There are so many factors that came into that, which is why I feel like my soul's purpose is to help others that have gone through child loss to find their joy again and to be happy again and live the way that their child wants them to live. So I'll tell you a bit about my story. Had been a rough couple years for a while. I was married for 28 years and had decided that it was time for us to consciously uncouple after just some really rough times. And I prayed and prayed and prayed about it. And 10 days after that, we had just told our three boys. We had three boys, two adult boys, one in high school, one in college, and then one out of college, that we were going to get divorced, my husband of 28 years and I. And we had just told him, and about 8 days later, our oldest died in a motorcycle accident. And it was devastating, as you can imagine. I remember sitting on the sun porch after I completely lost it and prayed and said, God, you can't do this to me. No, I won't accept it. You bring him back. This is not okay. Bring him back. And sitting in the sunroom crying and saying to my closest friends and my sisters, my parents were on their way, but they were there. And I remember saying, I honestly don't think I can live through this pain. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. And I can imagine you felt the same way when you lost your partner.
Oh, yeah. I have tears in my eyes and I'm a little choked up here and heaviness in my heart. It just brings, it brings it back and you can instantly relate to that moment. And yet time has lapsed. But yes, you face something unimaginable and you absolutely think there's no way I can possibly get through this and find joy.
Right. Right. And I do believe support system is very important. And I can say that I couldn't have gone through it with the support that that I had without it. The other thing is I have to say I couldn't have gone through it without having that higher power for me to lean on, that God, where I could scream and holler at him and also cry out and say, Jesus, carry me, because I cannot walk this path by myself. It was a rough year after that. We got the call from the coroner saying, these were his injuries and they were disgusting, and we had to listen to that. And then do you want to donate his organs? I mean, things you never think about for your child, and planning the funeral. And that was a really rough time. In the meantime, still deciding that it was a long time coming to get to the space where I was ready for divorce, because that was never in my wheelhouse. I believed it was wrong and I would never get divorced. And here I was in this space and having, a child that was dying. And what was it dead? And what was I going to do with my life, and how I was going to live this, on my own. And so I remember, though, the day after, well, the night that Josh passed away, I remember hearing him like he was next to me as plain as day. And he said to me, Mom, when can I come home? And I opened my eyes and I could have sworn he was next to me. Now, his girlfriend that he had a ring for and was going to propose to was in the bed next to me, because when he died, we picked her up from his house and she then stayed with us for a while. And she slept in bed with me because she was so distraught. And so she was next to me, and I was like, okay, she's next to me, but Josh isn't next to me. And I just said to him, honey, you are home, because he was home. He was in his forever home. And the next day, waking up with that same, like, was that a nightmare? Like, I think he's going to walk through the door, right? This is a nightmare. And then about a week later, I was sitting on the deck and I had the most unearthly peace come to me. And I just had this feeling like, you're going to be okay. And I knew it was from no one or nothing else but God. It was like I'm going to be okay. And I could not explain it. I still felt grief and sadness, but I felt like this peace come over me, and it never went away. And about a week or two after that, Josh came to me again at night and said, Mom, with God on your side and me by your side, you're going to be okay. And I was like, wow, interesting, right? And I started to learn how to open up to signs, and I had friends communicate with me. And because I'm in the hypnosis field and I'm a hypnotherapist, I had some friends that were what I would have at the time considered woo woo, that said, I can help you connect with him on the other side. Do you want to do a soul retrieval session? All this stuff that was completely foreign to me, because I was a Christian, and that stuff, like, I was not in that realm. I didn't know anything about it. Well, I started to open up my world and just listen to the signs, and open to a friend that offered an angel messenger course. I was like, what is an angel messenger? And yet I was open to it, because anyone that could help me connect with my son and feel my son again, I was all about it. And it started my journey of I would say, my spiritual awakening. Do I still have the same beliefs? Yes. And I also believe the question that most of us ask, or many of us ask, is, where did his soul go? And
Right.
I don't believe his soul is locked up in heaven. I believe his soul is still here and his body is not. I communicate with him, and so it changed a lot of my life. It opened my life in incredible ways.
I think it's beautiful. And for me, from my personal loss experiences, yes, I did a lot of communicating with Michael, and he did, and he does come to visit. But the first time he came to visit, it was so real. The first time he pretended like a mouse was running over my bed because he knows I hate mice. And I woke up and I'm like freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, I can't have a mouse in my bed. And then I realized, oh, that must have been a dream. So I went back to sleep, and this part was freaky. I woke up and there was a person spooning me, and I was alone. And I'm like, and I got tense, right? And he goes, shh, it's okay. It's me. And he was there holding me, and he whispered in my ear, "It's okay, I'm okay." And he goes, "I get it. I finally get it." He told me he loved me, and just like that, it went away.
Mhm.
And it was funny because when he first was spooning me, he came in the shape of my new dog because he knew that would wake me up because dogs weren't allowed on the bed, and then it morphed into him. So, I mean, it's so powerful, these visits, and they do help with the healing process, I find. Very much because we can have these conversations and they can communicate with us, and that gives us that peace and that healing that we really need when we're hurting so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know our human mind is like, did that really happen? And when it happens, you still
Mhm.
say that, did that really happen? And yet it is a clear knowing I did not make that up.
Absolutely. Yeah, like more than 100% for sure, it was real. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I was gonna ask you, when you this happened, you're just announcing your divorce to the kids, and then Josh dies. Did at some point you think, "Well, maybe I'm not gonna go through this divorce?" How did that play out for you? Because that's a scary time, one, to forge a new road and a new path, and then when you have a catastrophic loss of losing a child, that can kind of, well, you veer off the road anyway, and now you were already off course or trying to go down a new course, and what was that like for you?
That was tough because many people did not know. We were very involved in the community. Everyone knew us. Our oldest son that died in the motorcycle, Josh, he was a hometown hero. He was the wrestler that went to state and won twice at state and runner up and national champion and multi time national champion and Olympic hopeful. And so everyone knew us. And yet they also knew that we were married as long as we were. We don't always see on the outside what's going on the inside. And so we hadn't told hardly anyone. I mean, my parents knew, my sisters knew, and the boys knew. And that was really difficult because having to manage your son dying, we just put it aside. So we, slowly started telling people and they were shocked. We did not revisit that subject for a few months because we could only handle so much, right? And the challenge
Overload.
was is that because we had decided to do this, we couldn't lean on each other.
That's the other part.
It was incredibly lonely.
Yeah. Well, and I lived in Eagle County from 2001 to 2006 in Colorado mountains, and within 6 months, 2 of my friends lost their sons and to traumatic car events where they were, gone, and both harvested organs and eyes and knees and spreading their children's the best of their children to other people and making a difference in those people's lives. But 50% of marriages don't survive the loss of a child.
I know. I hear that. And everyone asks if that's why. And I always say, no, it's not. I would have I would have welcomed, having that support. And yet it wasn't there for us because we were still trying to figure out what was happening in our world. So yeah, it was really tough. I prayed a lot. And am I'm quite intuitive and I know it. And my gut is very strong. And I kept saying, is it time to turn around? But what I knew is that when I was finally ready after 28 years, there was no turning back. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a maybe because it was the hardest decision I had ever had to make in my entire life is to make that decision. It was not easy coming. It was years of struggle. And I knew that there wasn't turning back. Things would never be okay if I turned back. And so it was about staying strong and we were very cordial. I think we both knew that there was only so much we could handle. And so unfortunately, my husband at the time, my ex-husband, decided to move into Josh's house, which I was like, I don't know how you could do that, but he did. And we just navigated through it the best that we could. And like I said, I don't know if that's what made it cordial or we just moved through it. It was a rough year. And yeah, I decided to hold on to our house that we lived in, because the youngest was still in high school and I didn't want him to have another transition. So yeah.
Is he still in high school? Has he graduated?
Nope, he's graduated from college now. Mhm.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. And how are the surviving boys? How are they doing?
They are amazing. I have to say, one of the gifts is that they are closer than ever. And as you know, when you lose someone that close to you, you learn to enjoy every moment and make the most of your life and not waste a day, because you know that tomorrow things could change. And you start appreciating life more, right? And appreciating like what each day brings to you. And I think my boys were in the same places. They started appreciating each other more and leaning on each other. So one moved down to North Carolina. I'm in Wisconsin. The middle one, he moved down there for a job when he graduated college. The youngest was in college and visited him and decided to transfer colleges down by him. And now they're both in North Carolina living their best lives and very happy.
That's great. Proud mom moment.
Yes, yes, they are. They're in great places. And, we still talk about Josh and we still send pictures back and forth. And, we check on each other on birthdays, and he's still in our world. But yeah, I guess you just, as you know, you move on and you do the best that you can. The reason that I do what I do is because I feel very strongly that life is too short to be stuck in sadness. And life is too short to live in grief and guilt and regret. And our loved ones on the other side, just as you know, they don't want us to be stuck in that space. And so, my soul's mission, and I truly believe this, is to help other parents find themselves again, find their joy again, and live the life that their child wants for them.
Yeah, that's so important because with Michael, he had an alcohol withdrawal fueled suicide. And it was sudden, very tragic, unexpected. So his life ended in suicide. And when he would be sober and recovering, he would be like, "Oh no, I would never do that." I'm like, "Well, you did say that you blah blah blah." And he's like, "It's just the booze, just the booze." So I know if he was in his right mind, he wouldn't have done it. But since he did complete it, and one day I had this epiphany. He chose that. I get to choose too. I get to choose, how am I going to live the rest of my life? Am I going to choose to be sad and depressed, lonely, bitter? Or do I choose to go out into the world, recover and rebuild and move forward in a way that honors our relationship and stands to the resilient me that I am?
Yeah,
And
I love that.
it's so important because we all have a choice. And one of the grief counselors would say, grief is not a place you stay. We pass through grief. Now, grief, man, at the beginning, that acute stage of grief, wow, it's powerful. But we aren't meant to stay in that place of grief and
Right.
extreme stuck sadness,
And I
darkness.
love that, as you mentioned in the beginning, is turning that pain into purpose. And that's what you're doing with your podcast. And that's what I'm doing with my retreats, because I do feel blessed that I had the foresight, I had the training, I had the mindset to choose out, right? And yet there are people that want out, but they don't know how to get out. And so, as our soul's mission and our purpose is to help those that don't know how to choose that get out of that hole so that they can be joyful and happy again.
Yeah, that's so true. All right, switching gears a little bit. When did you know your son was still alive in spirit?
I would say it was a process, but honestly, that first night when he asked if he could come home, I had no doubt. And like I said, it wasn't like, was he there? I knew he was there. And then the day of his celebration of life, I had a friend that worked at the where I was doing hypnosis. She did massage there. And her brother had ironically died in a motorcycle accident. Her birthday is the same birthday as Josh's. and her first son is named Josh. So weird coincidences, connections, right? And before my Josh died, I thought, well, that is so interesting because her son or her brother that died in the motorcycle accident would visit her and she would say she'd get messages from him. And I always thought, okay, I believe you. And what is that? Like, I've never heard that before. That's never been in my wheelhouse. And so I just thought, very interesting, right? But on the day of my Josh's celebration of life, she sent me a text and she said, Josh, your Josh wants you to know that he is here with you guys. He's going to be there with you. He told his brothers, 1, 2, 3, stand up. He used some wrestling lingo, and they were all wrestlers that she would not have known. And so there was evidence. And she said, I just want to let you know that he is here. He's giving you this message and tell his brothers to stand up when it gets tough, just like getting on their feet when wrestling. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so crazy. And I wasn't sure I should show the other boys because they would have been like, Mom, you're crazy. But I had to. Right? So I showed them and they just were like, okay, okay. But in hindsight, all of these little pieces where people would bring me messages and show me signs and connect with me. And then I started just seeing signs from Josh, an eagle, knowing that was his sign. He had an eagle tattoo on his arm because that was his college mascot. He wrote a letter saying it's time for me to fly and eagle's wings. And I started seeing eagles fly over the lake that we lived on. I had never seen in the 14 years that we lived there an
Wow.
eagle. And the eagle started flying over the lake. I mean, these little signs, right? Where again, when you open your eyes to it, I explain it as like I walked around for 50 years of my life like this, just kind of blinded, right? Just living my life, doing my thing. And when Josh died, the blinders came off and my whole world opened up to like 360. Like I could see all around me and I could see the world in such different ways and just opening up to the signs and the messages and starting to trust that I'm not making this up. So it was a process, but I now like I can connect to souls on the other side. I can have a conversation with Josh and he's always right there anytime I need to call him. In fact, I know he's here now.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I know that is so powerful and moving. And like we said earlier, it's so healing to have these conversations with our loved ones. And, for them to come in and like, if I haven't heard from Michael in a while, they're like, okay, you check in with me. Can you give me an update? How's it going? And he did. He just 2 weeks ago showed up in a dream. It was the anniversary of the weekend we met. And the dream was so vivid. I'm like, and it ended. I'm like, woke up and I'm like, Michael, can you come back? And I had a second dream and he did. And he's doing well. And he saw that I was doing well. So it's really healing and healthy and helpful to have this connection with
And yet not
other
the
people.
same. Like, we get to acknowledge it's not the same as having
Not
my
the same.
son grow up and have his kids and come for holidays and be here for Easter, and it's not the same, but it still is it's reassuring that they're still there. They're watching us, and they're waiting for us to come someday when our time is done on this earth, right?
Yeah.
There's an Indian proverb that says something like, "We don't die, we just change worlds." And I remember reading that early on. I was like, "Oh, that's very interesting." And it's so true. Is our spirit, our soul is still here. We just moved to a different dimension, a different world. And yeah, and it's beautiful up there. I know it.
And I love that I've been a firm believer even before Michael died that when we die, our soul moves and goes elsewhere and has its own karmic purpose. And so I know that someone out there has this beautiful soul. And that's comforting too,
Yeah.
to know that.
Yeah. Yeah. And interestingly, like I didn't believe that. I always remember questioning because I have a strong Christian foundation. Where do our souls go? Like I wasn't sure. Yeah, they go to heaven, but what does that mean? Like, heaven's this beautiful place and it's wonderful and but where do our souls go? And then after my eyes opened, I was like, they're here. Like they're just on the other side of the veil, right? The bride, it's like a bride's veil. Like they're just on the other side. And when we call them, they're here. Like they're part of our lives. They're just not physically here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what would you say was the biggest gift you received from Josh's death?
I would say what I had mentioned before is that I see life from completely different eyes. And I've always been a positive person, and obviously hypnosis, power of the mind. I'm a mindset trainer. I sports hypnosis. I work with athletes for confidence and peak performance. I have that mindset. But but the gift he gave me was I see life differently. I have no judgment. I love you no matter who you are or what you choose. It's your soul's choice. I'm holding space for you. I believe there are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason, as hard as it is in our lives. Our souls have a plan. We learn from everything. It was a new awareness that I was not, just didn't know existed, a new way of seeing life.
I like your metaphor with the blinders.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other gift that he gave me is that he brought a man into my life that happened to be a medium. At the time, I didn't know anything about mediums. I thought they were woo woo. He was an old college high school friend, and he started teaching me a little bit about souls and spirits. I remember asking him one time, and we were just friends, but I remember asking him at one time, like, what is a spirit? The only spirit I know is Holy Spirit. And I have the Holy Spirit in my heart. But like, what do you mean by when you say that? Right. And he's like, well, same thing as souls and spirits. And so I started learning about all these things and started learning that, we have angels that want to help us, but they can't help us unless we ask, just like God can't help us unless we pray to God and say, God, like, help me work through this. Give me signs, give me right messages. Like you pray. And God can't interfere with your life. You're not a puppet. You're praying, And so he taught me about all these things. And Josh brought him into my life because Josh came to him and he contacted me, even though he was afraid to contact me. And he did. And he said, your son is being relentless. Does he know we went to Europe together in high school? He told me to put on this French song. It happened to be the soundtrack of Moulin Rouge that I was in love with, that I played all the time when my boys were younger. And he told him to put it on, and he put it on the radio. And so it was just the craziest thing, and because of this, I wrote a memoir, and the memoir is the 2 years after Josh died and how I navigated the divorce and how I became open to souls and Josh's connection and how I found my joy again because I said every single day I choose joy. I didn't believe it. It was so hard to say. I couldn't say good morning for months. I would say morning because there's nothing good about it. And
Right.
yet every day my mantra was, I choose joy. And I wrote in my journal and it became my memoir. So
That's beautiful.
yeah.
And that was 2 years ago that
The
you put
memoir
the
was complete 2 years ago, but I started
okay.
writing it probably a year and a half after he passed away. It took me 2 years to write. And so now I am complete and it's either gonna be self-published, but I'm very sure because of many, many messages that it will be picked up by a publisher. So, yeah, and
That's
it's the gift
exciting.
that yeah, I just have a knowing that Josh, he wrote it with me and that he wants it out in the world to help other parents heal.
There's definitely, unfortunately, a very large need for that because there are not enough resources, I think, for people to go through and process the loss of a child. And our society as a whole doesn't know what to do with grieving people, let alone people who grieve a child. I'm sure you've encountered the people who just have all these good intentions and then their foot's in their mouth and then they put the other one in the mouth and you're just crushed because it was not what came out wasn't what was healthy or healing or supportive. And our society just doesn't have enough talk about grief and how we can handle it, how we can support our people when somebody dies. We need more grief training. So I think this is a great resource. And I love what you're doing with your retreat. Talk about your retreats.
My retreats I went to a retreat myself, and it was a retreat about, it was kind of like finding our soul's purpose and our soul's mission. I know so many people that come to me even for hypnosis are like, I don't know my soul's purpose. And you might never know it. You don't have to know it. But the retreat was some like deep meditations or activations where we really tapped in. And at the end of the retreat, I think it was like the final day, I had written the memoir and I was like, okay, what am I going to do next with my life? I love working with athletes and I'm very happy with them. But I had this massive knowing you're going to be doing retreats to help others through what you're struggling with. And the retreats they're intimate and they're sacred. They're with others that have been through, that understand and get you. You know, when you lose a child, it's hard to explain, but they're part of your DNA and part of their soul is connected to your soul. And it's always there. And yet so much of it is about thoughts, right? And mindset. And so my mission is to help those that are in a space of not knowing that their child is still here with them, to help them through it with hypnotherapy and all of the tools and techniques that I use to help them tap into their own higher self. Because we have a soul, right? And when we can learn how to tap into our own soul, our own higher self, then we can learn how to tap into all of the energy and soul or soul around us. And so throughout the retreat, it's 3 nights and 4 days, is it's a very safe, intimate space where there's only 12 and they're being held. We're changing, sharing stories and then moving them through to a place of who am I? And oh, this is who I am. Like literally reinventing. Now you're this parent that has lost a child, and yet it's not a curse. It's new you. It's a new life. It's a new version of you. And what do you go do with it? So that's kind of how the Soulbirds process works, is, being held in a safe space, sharing stories, and then learning that releasing physically and emotionally the grief, guilt, and regret, and then moving into that new version of who you are and who your child wants you to be for the rest of your life.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And that's something I teach too, is that you're becoming this new version of yourself. When we go through some traumatic event, that is the moment we stop being that person we were. And now we have to figure out, how do we become the person we're meant to become next? And it's a journey. It just, we have this fallacy when we grow up that life's going to be easy and that we're going to just be one thing and that's the way we are. And what a little pipe dream that is.
I know it, right?
Do they just tell us that so we just idolize our adults?
I had my whole life planned out. I was going to retire and my house on the lake and everything was going to be fine. I was going to travel and my whole life was planned out. And it's one of the hardest things, right? I think when we do lose someone or our life changes so dramatically, it shouldn't be this way. It should have been this way, right? And the should haves took me a while to move through. And I know it does for a lot of us that had this life with this person that we loved, whether it's my son or a partner. We had the expectation it was going to be like this forever, and you had to move through it. Then, like, that should have been that way.
Well, that word expectation gets us in trouble all the time, every day. Choose your attitude, lower your expectations. We have to do that every day. Choose your attitude, lower your expectations. We get into trouble when our expectations are out of reach. We're just making life even harder than it is. And so, yes, we expect when we have a child, that child will die after we die. That is the expectation. We all know that that doesn't always happen. And then we have to evolve and learn and grow. And it's hard. It's hard to do that because I think, do you find too that when people are coming into your retreats that they don't want to let go because they think they're going to lose their child and their connection?
Yes.
I mean, I think that would be a normal fear.
Yes. If they let go of the sadness, if they let go of feeling guilty that they did this or they could have done this to keep them alive, if they let go of the regret, they might lose their child again. Yeah. And it's not logical, but it is so real. I remember when people would ask me, have you seen signs from Josh? Have you seen signs from Josh early on? I truly believed, no, I don't want to see any signs from him because it's going to make it harder. I don't want to see the signs. And then when I opened up and started seeing the signs, every time I do now, I'm just like, "Hey, bud, like, there you are. Like, thanks for the message," right? But I moved through that too, and it's the same thing with letting go of those emotions. What if I do that, I might forget. If I do that, I might not remember them anymore. If I do that, I might not honor them if I let go of the sadness.
Well, and it also has to deal with dude. It has to do with the acceptance and where we are in the grief and the acceptance of losing our person. Because when we are acknowledging that, oh, that's a sign, that means that we accept that they're physically gone from our world. And, there's denial. We don't want to
Mm,
do that. So I think that's another component too that comes into play.
true. True.
Yeah.
And that's part of the stages.
What is the transformation you see in your guests at the retreat?
Gosh. I mean, I had expectations in the retreat and I knew where I could bring them. But that last day when we had our final like connection time and recap was so rewarding for me because I heard things like, I never thought I could be happy again. And I am so excited to live my life again. It's beautiful. And I came here like so angry with the world and so feeling so much guilt. I had so much weight on my shoulders and I'm leaving here light and refreshed and renewed. And it's so beautiful. And that's why I do it because I want everyone, no matter what they've been through in their life, to feel light and fresh and renewed. Yeah, it's really exciting and it's a process. I mean, it's a 4-day process of we do a lot in those 4 days. It feels like weeks.
And it's heavy, right? You're letting go. It's heavy emotions. There's a lot of crying, I imagine,
Honestly,
cleansing.
only that first day. I would say
Okay.
only the first day is like, tell me your story. And then we don't go back there. Just like when I do hypnosis, it's not like going to a psychologist or a therapist where you rehash your story, tell me your story, tell me your story. It's just tell me a little bit about it, and then I'm gonna bring you to the space where you figure it out, and I'm the coach, I'm the guide, and I direct you there, but it's not really heavy where you like rehashing and crying and, like, I'm not gonna tell you exactly what happened the night that Josh died or how his motorcycle accident went. I just want to know that's all that happened to him. And now we're moving forward. So it's actually a beautiful, beautiful process.
Excellent. It's
Yeah.
the same thing when I tell people about my brain injury, they're enamored with how did it happen? I looked at them, I'm like, the how doesn't matter. Was it car accidents? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the how doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is this is what happened. This is how we move forward.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, the how is always everybody. I don't know what it is in our society. Everybody is just, it's the very first question. How? And then they like to tell me, well, you're not going to do that anymore, are you?
Uh,
Yes.
I
I'm
think
here to
not.
live my life.
Right. And that's the thing too, right? Is we know this when we rehash it. If I sat and thought about every day that day I found out and visualized what did it look like when he crashed into the car. And if I did that, right, I would stay in a space of like sadness and hopelessness. And part of the key is shutting that door and then moving toward like what is it that we want instead of what we don't want. So yeah, you're right.
When we continue to rehash the story, it keeps us stuck. And for me, I had been in a year of deep therapy, weekly therapy, to understand what it was like to be in relationship with someone with such a severe addiction, because it's not normal. The normal rules of relationships did not apply. And I needed to be able to throw him, our metaphor was throw him the life preserver
Mhm.
without him pulling me off the shore into the dangerous white water. How could I throw him the life preserver without him pulling me into his problems?
Mhm.
So a nice little balancing act. And I think that's important to understand. And when he died, I was just getting ready to go once a month and then wean completely off because I had grown so much and learned so much. But then he died. And then I'm like, well, obviously, we're going to keep going weekly.
Because I'm jumping in the water.
Right, right. Now I'm the one that needs the life preserver, right? And so I had to process. We take on, you're talking about guilt. That was the first time I didn't go and help him
Mm,
detox. I was waiting for the phone call, and his mother and I had talked and said, nobody's going to go anywhere. We're going to see if we can get help without either of us going.
mhm,
And of course, we, and our mind is powerful, as you know, thought I could have stopped this.
mhm,
It's my fault. We take on this responsibility and the guilt and why did I agree to this? I knew it was right in my mind that it was right that we were going to do this, but I mean, he was 3 hours away. I was the one who was there time and time and time and time again with him. I knew how horrible it was for him, and I just didn't want him to feel alone and like no one loved him. And also with alcohol addiction, the first 24 hours, the hallucinations are terrible when you're in withdrawal. So
So I'm
anyway, yeah,
curious for
it's
you, what did it take? What was the shift that you were able to let go of that guilt and know that his soul chose that and it wasn't you and you weren't in control of that and there was nothing you could have done?
2 things. The therapist who had the certificate in addiction helping me, and thank God I had that 1 year of therapy, intensive therapy behind me. So I had that foundation that I had built. But the second thing was one day I was just walking and I had gotten a new service dog, and we named him Mickey in homage to Michael. And he let me, like you said, the blinders, he opened my eyes. He got me giggling. He got me outside, exercising, releasing the endorphins. He got me out of bed. I had a reason to get out of bed now because that's something that I think everybody has known deep loss is I didn't have a dog. I lost my dog. She just died in her sleep one night and I lost Michael. I'm like, I don't have any reason to get out of bed. I might as well just lay here a little longer. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who can relate to that. But once I got this new dog and he was like, I'm like, gotta get out of bed. I don't know what he's gonna do. Let's get outside, go take care of your business. And those were the 2 things. And the second, like I said, I chose.
I love that.
I chose. I realized that he made that choice in his life in an altered state, one that I know he wouldn't have chosen in a sober mind.
Mhm,
And then once I made that decision, that was it. Then I forged ahead.
mhm. Yep, yep, yep. And look where you are now. You're helping others and changing
Yeah.
lives.
Yes, and when we do something that's so aligned with our soul, and like you said, the soul's mission, we know deep, deep, deep in our bones that this is the right path and the right trajectory, and that we're doing it to help people because we know how it helped us.
Mhm. Yep, yep. I love that. I love that. And I love, like you said, how I find it so fascinating that all of us on this earth experience losing someone. And I think to myself, it is so difficult and so hard when you're going through it in that beginning stage. And yet so many people experience it. Right. And so,
Mhm.
like you said, it's just about having the resources that those of us that have been through it can help others up, with that life raft or that, up out of that hole because we've been there.
Well, and the other thing too is when you're grieving, the people come out of the woodwork that you least expect to come and help you. And the ones, here we go with that word, expect again. And the ones you think that are close to you would be the ones that you would rely on and lean on, they scatter. So it surprises you when there is grief in your world, the people who show up and the people who don't know how to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to wonder if it's people that have been through it or, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Talk about anything that we haven't talked about that you want to tell people.
Gosh, there's so much. So, right. Like, what I know is that we all go through experiences in life that are not easy. And I truly believe that if you didn't experience it younger in life, you're going to experience it later. None of us are getting through this life without something that's going to be really hard. I mean, there's very few reprieve lives. And it's really about looking at it. What is the lesson that I learned? And how did this happen to me and not for me? And what do I get to do with it? Right? Because whether it's massive financial loss or divorce or death or illness or, cancer or massive pain or like hard stuff here on this earth that we experience. But when we can look at it that I'm learning something from this, I'm going to be a different person on the other side of it. I believe that anything that happens that's hard in life, the other side is massive breakthrough and a
Mhm.
different person on the other side. And when we can look at it that way, we can literally get through anything. And I say now, like, I am afraid of nothing. There is nothing that I am afraid of. If another one of my sons dies, will I be devastated? Yes. But will I survive it? Yes. Do I want to feel the heartache again? No. If I get cancer tomorrow, do I want to be sick? No. Do I want to feel ill? Hell no. But will I be okay mentally and emotionally? Yeah, because nothing scares me anymore. We can get through anything with mindset and just looking at the lessons and realizing that it's part of our soul's path to learn
Mhm.
on this earth what it is that we came here to learn.
That's so true, and I think so many people forget that. It's very we have a myopic vision, and we think this is our trajectory, and this is it, and there's these fail to see that these obstacles, these hard, hard things, these excruciating things that we go through are really meant to help us become a better, stronger version of ourselves that we can use our pain to help other people because this world has a lot of selfishness in it and I'm hurting. So I'm just going to take care of me. And when we help other people, we feel better and we find healing. And I'd like more people to adapt that into practice into their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like the Bible says, is we go through fire in order to sharpen our iron. Like that's what we do is we move through the fire. But yes, you're right, is it's about choosing and knowing that you're strong enough. And also knowing as a therapist, like there are we are programmed by our parents. And a lot of times the mindset and the resilience, as we talk about resilience, right? It comes from what we've learned, it comes from what's programmed. But it doesn't mean that we can't find the resources to help us through whatever it is, right? It's just we get to move through that programming.
And what happens to us doesn't define who we are.
That's right.
We're a version of ourselves that's altered from the version we knew ourselves before as, but it doesn't define us forever.
Unless we let it and we want it to. Like I could walk around and say, poor me, my son died, right? But I choose the definition of now I'm leading retreats and I
Yeah,
wrote a memoir. And so that's a different definition. Yeah.
exactly.
And you, podcast host. You don't walk around saying, woe is me. I'm a podcast host and I'm helping.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, that's so true. Our mindset, our resilience, and sometimes we really have to dig deep. And when we go through something as horrific as losing a loved one and losing a child, it is I can't imagine that pain. I know my pain. And yes, you're right, that DNA connection. I am a child. I know what that's like. And especially as a mother, because we carried them and we birthed them. That is a deep, deep connection that withstands space and continuum and worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always there. Like I say, it's a deep, deep open wound for a while and it slowly, slowly, if you allow it to, will heal. But the scar will always be there.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
Yes. And what free resources do you have to offer listeners today?
I have a couple hypnosis audios that I would love to offer. One of them is healing from loss of a loved one and connecting with that loved one and how to connect with them through your heart center. It's incredibly powerful and it's literally getting into your heart center, tapping in finding the door and then connecting with them on the other side, and just knowing that they are with you and they'll always be with you. So I have the link in the show notes. But yeah, I'd love to offer that to any of your listeners. And it's a hypnosis slash meditation audio that relaxes you and helps you to make that connection.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah.
Talk about your next retreat. When is your next retreat? And how many retreats do you have a year?
I am intending to have 4 a year.
Okay.
And lately, I've just been, oh, let's do the next one. Oh, when's the next one? My next one is this summer in July in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Is
And
that in
it's
North Carolina?
in North Carolina. Yep. So not too far from Asheville. So flying into Asheville, and I have transportation to a beautiful Christmas tree farm in the mountains that overlooks a lake and very serene. There's alpacas there, and we'll be going on some hikes and have a campfire, and really just connecting together soul to soul as we do the transformational work. July 18th.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you so much, Caryn, for sharing your time, your expertise, your experience, your wisdom, your light, and your joy to all of us. And I want everyone to remember that every month I offer a free live resilience training class, and you can sign up here on the link here. And until next time, be real, be resilient, reclaim your life. Ciao.
Thanks for having me.